Mhm.
Film school was something that I looked into in America actually, but
What programs did you check out? Look at
I saw, oh man, it's quite a few years ago, but I looked into one in Florida.
Full Sail in Florida.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Mhm.
And it, the price, the tuition was just overwhelming, especially from someone who comes from Denmark, where education essentially is free, right? We actually get
Yeah,
paid to go to school
that's
here,
great.
which is completely backwards from America, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
No, but it's better. I think that approach is better. Again, even there's two things, right? There's certainly the price in America, which is bonkers. Again, bonkers because if you're paying X and you get more than X back, awesome. Whether that's 100,000 or a
mhm.
million or a billion or $1, whatever it is, you just want to get more than you put out, right? Um, so that's one thing, the price part of it. The other part of it is just the structure of it. Traditional education tends to have, again, it's like, oh, we're the instructors, we have it, walk through this path, and then we'll test you. And it's a real clunky way to really learn. You're really it's just the inefficiency of it compared to like a coaching experience or a small group learning experience. There's significantly better ways, and I think, and you see there's a real surge in online education programs.
Do you think we will slowly move towards only being educated online from online education?
Oh, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think in person is wonderful. I mean, you just get different things. Look, I loved my at my years at NYU Film School. Just being that age and being around there and being like I'm totally devoted to learning stuff. And I didn't I loved intellectual discussions and some of the classes I took that were outside of the film program. I hated being, required to take those classes.
Mm,
So, um, uh, because I've always had very strong feelings about education because I knew that so much of what I was learning that really felt good to me and was making an impact on people had nothing to do with what I was learning in school. And that drove me crazy because the last thing I'll say about it is because I'll talk on the subject too much,
yeah.
but like to me, requiring another human being, these kids, to be in a certain place, to study a certain subject in a certain way at a certain time, I think it's profoundly problematic um, because when people are, if they're completely neglected and they're left on the street, they're in trouble, right? But if they're given an assortment of resources, like caring older people that can help them, and it's more of an on-demand type education experience, that's phenomenal. The To me, that's the best. Being neglected is trouble. But what traditional education does is like you got to be here, you got to study this, you got to do how you have to do it. It's just very, very narrow, and ends up the vast majority of people don't have. It's just it's so it's it teaches them that their passion doesn't matter. That's the effing
Yeah.
problem.
Hmm.
Their passion doesn't matter. How they structure their existence doesn't matter. Somebody else is imposing that on them. These are really fundamental existential problems, and yet it's ubiquitous. Like what's interesting is like most of there's these schools that do it differently. There's maybe I don't know across the world 300 maybe 500 of these schools. I think there's one I've known one about one in Denmark, but they let the kids basically completely learn what they want when they want to learn it. It's completely student driven. Um, but what's interesting is these schools have been around for a while and they haven't really caught on. So there's weird people like me that really like them, or there's kids that are really struggling in traditional education, and they kind of that's how most of those schools happen. They're wired a certain way, and they're having a tough time in traditional schools, and they're kind of drawn to schools like that are a safe haven. But in my mind, just by what I've learned about sort of motivation and success and stuff, that should be the standard, um, because everybody would learn better when you have more choice. Um, because and what happens in those schools is those kids aren't forced to learn to read. There's a wide range of them, but the ones that I like best, the kids they basically show up and it's recess all day long. They basically play all day
Mm.
long, and at a certain point, they're like, "Look, I want to play this video game. And I need to read stuff. Teach me how to read."
Yeah.
And they're like, "All right," and then they learn to read in like a couple weeks, and that's it, and then they're off. So to me, that's so much more in the flow of how human nature works.